The eggs were still in the pan when she vanished. Yolk bubbling, edges crisping, like nothing had gone wrong. Except the stove kept burning and she was already on a plane to Maui. I didn't notice at first. I thought she'd just stepped out to grab the mail. Maybe slipped outside to yell at the neighbor's dog again. But the back door was ajar, and her phone was sitting next to the butter dish. Her phone, unlocked, with one text left open like a loaded gun. "I'm at the gate. Please tell him I'm sorry." I don't know who him is. I don't know who she sent it to. I only know it wasn't me. The kids were watching cartoons, singing some awful animated fruit song on loop. I asked if Mommy said anything. My son, with jelly on his face, said, "She said don't let the eggs burn." That's it. That's all she left me with. Eggs, kids, and a house that suddenly felt like it didn't recognize me anymore. 3 hours later, a package arrived. Not from Amazon. Not even addressed to me. Just a handwritten label and marker that read, "Open in 2 weeks." Not before. No return address. Inside, a single hotel key card. A folded map of Maui, circled in red marker. A tiny black seashell taped to a post-it that said, "Remember the pool." I didn't know what it meant. I didn't want to know. That night, her sister called. Said she'd gotten a voice message. Not a call, a recording. Pre-recorded. Like something made ahead of time. In it, Callista's voice was calm. Too calm. "Don't worry. I'm safe. I just had to leave. Don't try to follow. He'll be fine." She meant me. Like I was the thing she had to escape. I checked the cameras. She'd turned them off. Deleted cloud backups. I tried her laptop. Password changed. I checked the kids' backpacks. Nothing. Until I found a note folded into my daughter's sock drawer. "Dad will try to pretend this is normal. It's not. Be strong. He loves you." Written in my wife's handwriting, addressed to my 7-year-old daughter. That night, I sat in my car in the garage with the engine off and the windows up, just to feel what silence was again. I counted ceiling spiders. I cried into a Wendy's napkin. I whispered apologies to no one. Then I got a notification from our credit card company. $1,200 spent at a scuba shop in Lahaina. I called the number. A guy named Kyle answered and said, "Oh yeah, Callista. She and her boyfriend got the full gear set. Sweet couple." Boyfriend. She'd been gone 18 hours. I wish I could say I got angry. I wish I could say I slammed a door or broke something poetic. But I just sat there, watching scrambled eggs dry on a cold plate, whispering to the dog, "I think I've been replaced by a man named Kyle." And then I did what any reasonable father and emotional sponge of a man would do. I logged into Facebook under her old high school pseudonym and started digging. What I found made my stomach cave in on itself like a collapsing tent. An account. A fake name. Photos of her. Tagged. Smiling. Wearing a seashell necklace. Caption. "Sometimes you have to leave to remember who you are." The comments were all fire emojis and YSSS Queen. None of them knew she had a family. She was gone. The world was spinning. And I was left with kids, receipts, and one hell of a growing suspicion. Because here's the thing. 2 years ago, she made me promise I'd never go to Hawaii. Said it was too touristy. Said it gave her bad memories. Now she's there. With a man named Kyle. And I just found something buried in our backyard that makes me think this whole thing, every bit of it, was planned from the start. You ever dig something up and wish you hadn't? I didn't mean to go looking. I was just raking leaves because I didn't know what else to do with my hands. The kids were at school. I'd barely eaten. I kept glancing at the microwave like her note would magically reappear on it. The one she left that morning when she vanished mid-breakfast, midlife. The rake caught on something. Not a rock, not a root. Plastic. White and dusty. I cleared the dirt and saw the edge of a container. One of those storage bins with a locking lid. The kind you keep in basements full of Christmas decorations or baby clothes. I pulled it out of the earth with my bare hands, fingers trembling. It wasn't buried deep, maybe a foot and a half down. No shovel marks. Almost like it was hidden quickly. Inside the bin. A burner phone, turned off. A spiral notebook with rules scribbled in red ink on the front. And a man's wristwatch. Not mine. There was dried mud on the watch face and a faint crack across the glass. The time was frozen at 4:09. My stomach turned. The air smelled metallic. Hiccup, our dog, started whining and refused to come near the box. I don't know why, but I suddenly became very aware of every single sound outside. The wind in the trees, a neighbor's car starting, the creak of my fence shifting in the breeze. I sat on the porch and opened the notebook. The handwriting was definitely hers. All caps. Aggressive. There were 10 rules. Rule number 1. Don't talk to him if he shows up again. Rule number 2. If I'm gone longer than 7 days, burn the phone. Rule number 3. Don't let the kids answer unknown numbers. Rule number 4. Don't dig in the backyard. Rule number 5. Don't trust Kyle. Rule number 6. If I call and say the pool's clean, take the kids and leave town. Rule number 7. Do not tell the kids the truth. Rule number 8. Don't go to the attic. Rule number 9. Don't believe anything you see online. Rule number 10. Don't follow me. Not this time. I sat there for an hour reading that list over and over again, every time hoping the words would change. But they didn't. She wrote it. She meant it. And suddenly I realized this wasn't about some romantic escape to Hawaii. This was deeper, older, rehearsed. She'd left before. That night, I tried to act normal. I made spaghetti, burned the garlic bread. Felix refused to eat anything that wasn't shaped like a dinosaur. Zadie asked if Mom had found her lost necklace yet. I lied and said yes. After they went to bed, I poured a glass of warm wine and stared at that burner phone. I held it like it might bite me. Eventually, I turned it on. No password. Just one text thread. No contact name. Just a number with a Utah area code. Dozens of messages. Mostly one-sided. When you're cutting it close. Did he suspect anything? Tell Kyle to stay in the car next time. We still have time. I scrolled further back. Photos. One of me sleeping. One of the kids at the park. One of the side of our house. The window of the attic I never went into. I dropped the phone. Almost threw it across the room. But I didn't. Because I noticed something in the last message, sent just 3 days before she vanished. You know he'll go looking once the eggs burn. The eggs. The eggs. That wasn't a random breakfast. It was a trigger. A cue. Something they'd planned for. Something she was waiting for. And I'd stepped right into it like an idiot. I barely slept that night. Around 2 a.m., I thought I heard footsteps above me. In the attic. But when I grabbed a flashlight and opened the hatch, nothing. Just old boxes. Dust. Silence. Still, I nailed it shut. I don't know why. It felt safer. But when I went back downstairs, the burner phone buzzed in my pocket. One new message. You're not supposed to be reading this. And just like that, the screen went black. Battery dead? Or turned off remotely? I don't know. But I do know one thing now for certain. This isn't about an affair. It's not even about Hawaii. It's about something she's been hiding for years. And I'm starting to think I was never supposed to survive her leaving. The morning after the burner phone died, I told myself I wasn't going to look at the attic again. I told myself I'd leave it nailed shut, focus on the kids, get back to work, maybe clean out the fridge like a normal person. But people like me, soft-spined, overthinkers, guys who fold laundry to avoid eye contact with their own feelings, we don't just move on. We obsess. We rot in our own questions. And by lunchtime, I was back on the ladder with a hammer in one hand and a flashlight in the other, sweating through my shirt like a guilty priest. I opened the attic again. It smelled like sawdust and mildew. The air was heavier than I remembered. Something about the silence up there felt inhabited. Not loud, not creaky, just present. As if the room itself was holding its breath. There weren't many boxes. Just 2 Rubbermaids, both filled with old Christmas ornaments and some decaying wrapping paper. But on the far side of the attic, under the angled beam where the insulation had started to curl away from the wall, I saw something strange. A section of wallpaper. Not drywall, actual wallpaper. Cheap. Floral. Yellowed with age. Pasted over one panel of the wall like someone had tried to cover a hole, but didn't have the tools or time to do it right. Why would there be wallpaper in the attic? I tapped it. Hollow. I ran my fingers along the seam. Then I noticed something written, faintly, in what looked like eyeliner pencil, right below the floral pattern. You already opened the wrong thing. This won't help. My spine went stiff. For a second I convinced myself maybe one of the kids had been playing up here years ago and wrote it as a joke. But the handwriting, tight, slanted, impatient, was hers. Callista had been up here. Probably often. I ripped the wallpaper away in one aggressive pull, revealing a crude hole in the wood, about the size of a shoebox. Inside was a sealed manila envelope, a dusty hard drive, and, of all things, a Polaroid photo, clipped to a paperclip. The photo nearly made me vomit. It was our kitchen, but not how it looks now. It was older, different curtains, different fridge magnets. from maybe 6 or 7 years ago, but unmistakably our house. Callista was in the frame. She was standing in front of the sink, holding Zadie as a baby on her hip, smiling. And just behind them, blurry but there, standing in the corner of the room like a goddamn shadow, was a man. A man I've never seen before. Bearded, wearing a gray coat. No face visible. He was watching them. Not smiling. Not waving. Just watching. The photo wasn't taken through a window or with a zoom lens. It was taken from inside the room. Someone had been in our house. I dropped the photo. I actually had to sit down on the attic floor and put my head between my knees. The only reason I didn't pass out was because Hiccup started barking like hell downstairs. Not his mailman bark. Not his squirrel on the fence bark. This was full alert. I rushed down. The front door was wide open. No wind. No broken lock. Just open. The kids were still at school. I called out, loud, maybe louder than I meant to. Hello. No answer. I searched the house room by room, turning on every light, checking every closet, under every bed. Nothing. But when I went to close the front door again, I saw something tucked into the screen. Another envelope. This one was blank. No writing. Just sealed with a thin strip of duct tape. I opened it with shaking fingers. Inside was a single photo, printed, not Polaroid, of Callista on the beach. In Hawaii. Sitting on a rock near a cliffside, smiling. Only this time, she wasn't with Kyle. She was alone. And the photo was dated. Taken 2 days after she came back. But here's the thing, I never saw her come back. I said she came back. I believe she came back. But I never saw her. No knock at the door. No face-to-face. Just signs. Doors left open. Drawers rearranged. Her handwriting showing up in places it hadn't been before. Was she actually back? Or had someone just been trying to make it look like she had? That night, I checked every lock. Slept with the lights on. Told the kids the power company might be checking lines, just in case they heard footsteps again. At 3:17 a.m., I woke to the sound of running water. Not a faucet. A hose. I looked outside. Someone had turned the backyard sprinkler system on, in the rain. Just standing in the middle of it all was Hiccup, soaked and growling at nothing. But the real horror? When I walked out there, barefoot and freezing, I noticed someone had dug up the exact same hole I found the buried box in. Only now, the box was gone. And nailed to the fence with a rusted old tack was a note, scribbled in thick black marker on a napkin from a seafood restaurant in Lahaina. You're 2 steps behind. Stop before you find the pool. There is no pool. We've lived in this house for almost 8 years, and there has never been a pool. Not an above ground. Not a neighbor's pool within view. Not even a kiddie one from Walmart. And yet, somehow, that word has become the center of all of this. Remember the pool. If I say the pool's clean, leave town. Don't go near the pool. And now this. Stop before you find the pool. So I did what any desperate, unraveling father would do. I called the city zoning office. It took an hour of being transferred, put on hold, and trying to remember the parcel number for our property. But eventually, someone named Clem, yes, really, pulled up the original blueprints for the house and said something that made my teeth hurt. Oh sure, that lot used to have a pool. Big one. Filled in around 1998, I think. It was part of a foreclosure flip job. Real sloppy. I'm surprised you don't get sinkholes out there. I hung up the phone in total silence. I walked out to the backyard and just stood there, staring at the spot where I'd found the buried box, and now where someone had unburied it. That was the spot. The old pool. I hadn't uncovered something by accident. I'd been led there. The sprinkler system, the notes, the eggs, every piece of this wasn't random. It was a trail, or a game. And the worst part? I wasn't even the one playing. Later that evening, Zadie asked if she could sleep with the door locked. She'd never asked that before. She's not an anxious kid. She doesn't get scared of storms or creaks or even spiders. But she looked pale and tight-jawed when she asked. I tried not to panic. Of course, I told her. Everything okay? She hesitated. Then she said, I don't like when Mommy walks around at night. I froze. What do you mean? She shrugged, like she didn't want to get in trouble. I heard her talking in the laundry room, but she wasn't using her regular voice. It was quiet, like she was hiding. I felt the blood drain from my face. How long ago was this? Zadie looked confused. Last night, when I was asleep on the couch with the porch light on. When I dreamed I heard footsteps but told myself it was just Hiccup. I tried to smile. I tucked her in. I told her mommy was still on vacation and maybe she just dreamed it. But the truth was, I believed her. More than I believed anything at this point. I stayed up until 3 a.m. again. The wine didn't help. The dog wouldn't stop pacing. At one point, I heard something fall upstairs, a faint thud. I climbed the steps with my fists clenched and a bat in my hand, half expecting to find a window open or a curtain moving. But the house was still, until I saw it. On the hallway wall, just beside the kids' bathroom, something drawn in pencil. Light. You wouldn't notice it unless you were specifically looking for it. A diagram. It looked like a floor plan. Not of the house. Of something else. Maybe a building. Maybe a room. I couldn't tell. There were tiny words labeled at each corner. Intake. Observer. Chamber A. Pool sealed. That last part was underlined. Twice. Below the diagram was a single line of text. We agreed this was the only way. It was her handwriting. She'd been here. Maybe still was here. And I was just fumbling through a script someone else had written for me. Late, lost, and slowly unraveling like a sock in a washing machine. I spent the next day calling every number I could think of. Her old college friends. Her old job. Her dentist. I even called Kyle. Yes, that Kyle. The one from the scuba rental receipt. The same guy whose name was in one of the messages on the burner phone. To my surprise, he answered. At first, he pretended not to know who I was. But when I said Callista's name, there was a pause. Not long, but sharp enough to tell me everything. I haven't seen her in weeks, he said. We barely talked. She said she needed someone to make it look like she'd run away with me. Said it was just insurance. I thought it was weird, but she paid in cash. Real specific instructions. What kind of instructions? I asked, pacing the kitchen like a lunatic. Nothing illegal, he said quickly. Just look like a boyfriend. Take some photos. Pretend to post them. Rent a hotel room. Smile at a camera. And don't ask questions. Did she ever talk about a pool? Silence. Then he hung up. I haven't told the kids anything. I don't know what to say. Hey guys, your mom faked a tropical affair and may or may not be haunting us through floor plans and forgotten landscaping features. Doesn't exactly fit into a bedtime story. But I can't shake the feeling that this is going to end where it began. Not with the flight, not with the breakfast, but with whatever was in that pool before it got filled in. Because when I was digging through the garage this afternoon, looking for old photos, I found something jammed behind the shelving unit. A VHS tape. No label. No sleeve. Just the tape itself, dusty and cracked. We've never owned a VCR. But Callista's parents did. And guess who's going there tomorrow? Because I think the only way to find her now is to go all the way back to who she was before she ever met me. And something tells me that pool wasn't just water. It was a lock. And she was trying to keep something sealed inside. The first thing I noticed when I walked into Callista's childhood home was the smell. Lemon cleaner and old wood. The kind of scent that clings to your clothes even hours later. Her parents were gone for the weekend. I knew this because I'd called and left a vague message pretending I needed to borrow a wrench. They were headed to Michigan to visit an aunt who still sent birthday cards made of glitter and theological guilt. They wouldn't be back until Monday. That gave me 48 hours. The house hadn't changed in 15 years. Same uneven staircase, same sticky cabinet drawers, same crooked wedding photo of her parents near the dining room entrance. A picture Callista once told me she hated because, quote, my mom was crying before the vows and my dad was sweating through his tux like he'd seen a ghost. I found the VCR in the guest room, still hooked up to a boxy old TV with one of those remotes that weighed half a pound. I don't know why I felt nervous, but my hands were shaking as I slid the tape in. The machine swallowed it with a hiss. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the screen, praying for answers. Or maybe praying for nothing at all. For 30 seconds, there was only static. Then, slowly, an image began to form. Grainy, blue-tinted. A view of an empty room. A basement, maybe. One hanging bulb. A desk. A fold-out chair. The sound was muffled, like it had been recorded through a wall. I leaned in, adjusted the tracking, and then I saw her. Callista. Younger. Early 20s, maybe. Sitting in the chair with her hands on her lap, eyes wide, breathing shallow like she'd just finished running. Her hair was longer. Her expression was hollow. She was whispering. I couldn't make out the words. I turned the volume up to max, and that's when the subtitles appeared. Someone had manually added captions, letter by letter, almost like they were trying to preserve her words. If someone finds this, I didn't forget. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't making it up. She paused, looked over her shoulder, then back to the camera. The pool isn't sealed. They told me it was, but I saw what came out that night. I saw what went back in. I froze. She kept speaking. They chose me because I was willing. Because I said yes. I thought it would just be a ritual. Some weird performance. I didn't know it was real. She broke down. Not movie tears. Real, trembling, shoulder-shaking sobs. Then something moved in the background. A flicker of shadow. The tape distorted for a second. When the image came back, she was looking straight into the camera now. Not at whoever was behind it. At me. Don't dig. Don't go near the hole. If it calls you, don't listen. The screen went black. Just as I was about to eject the tape, the static returned, more violent this time. I was about to shut it off when a new clip flickered on screen. No timestamp. No audio. Just a slow, looping recording of the backyard. Our backyard. And there, in the center of the dead grass, where the old pool had been, was a person standing barefoot, covered in mud, face obscured by their own hair. At first, I thought it might have been Callista. But the longer I watched, the more I realized. It was me, standing completely still, not moving, not blinking, just watching the house. I yanked the tape out and nearly broke the VCR. My breathing was jagged. I drove home with all the windows down, paranoid I'd see that muddy version of myself in the rearview mirror. I felt cracked open, disassembled, like whatever I had just seen wasn't a memory, but a warning. And I had arrived too late. When I got back to the house, it was quiet. Too quiet. The dog didn't bark. The lights were off, even though I knew I'd left them on. And then I noticed the trail of water. Thin, uneven puddles stretching from the back door, across the tile, and up the stairs. Like someone had climbed out of the soil and walked straight into the house. I followed the trail, stomach tight, heart thudding so loud I thought it might wake the kids. The footprints stopped outside my bedroom. The door was open. The room was dark. Inside, there was only one thing out of place. My pillow. It was wet. Soaked, actually, as if someone had been crying into it for hours. But not warm tears. Cold. I reached down and pulled the blanket back. There, sitting dead center on the mattress, was the same watch I'd found buried days ago, the one that had disappeared. Only this time, it was ticking, and engraved on the underside was a phrase I hadn't noticed before. The pool remembers. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat by the door with the bat in my hand and a kitchen knife tucked under my arm, like some pathetic discount warrior. I watched the hallway for hours, waiting for something to move. But nothing did. Until, just before dawn, I heard a voice. A whisper, coming from the attic. It wasn't Callista. It was a child. But it wasn't my child. It said one word, and one word only, over and over again. Remember. 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 I shut the attic. I locked the attic. I shoved furniture in front of it and taped a note to myself on the door that said, "Don't be a hero." But even now, I can still hear the word. Not loud, not angry, just patient. Like it's been waiting for me to listen for a very long time. By the next morning, I had come to accept a very simple, very horrifying truth. I was no longer afraid of what was outside the house. I was afraid of what might already be inside. The attic was still barricaded. The dog refused to go near the stairs, and the children, mercifully, seemed untouched by whatever was unraveling around me. But I wasn't sleeping. My hands had started to shake when I reached for doorknobs. My reflection looked tired in a way I didn't recognize. And I kept thinking about that VHS tape. Her voice. The pool. The phrase, "They told me it was sealed." I decided to take another look at the backyard. This time, not from the surface. This time, underneath. Beneath our house, there's a crawl space, about 4 feet high, mostly unused, full of cobwebs and insulation dust. Callista always hated it. Called it the coffin. I hadn't gone down there in years. But I had to know. I had to see if the rod in this house went all the way down. It took me nearly half an hour to squeeze through the narrow entrance behind the water heater. The air immediately shifted, thick and wet, with a metallic undertone like rust or old blood. I moved slowly, flashlight trembling in my hand, brushing away webs with a broomstick I'd taped to a golf club. I wasn't prepared to find anything, not really. I thought maybe a raccoon. Maybe some old Halloween decorations that had gone moldy. Instead, I found the photos. Hundreds of them. Maybe more. Taped to the beams, curled with moisture, edges stained. All of me. Some were old, before I met Callista. I saw one of me in college, leaving a party. One of me at my first job, sitting in a break room I barely remembered. Some were more recent, in the backyard last summer, grocery shopping 2 weeks ago, brushing my teeth in this very house. Whoever had taken them had been watching me for decades. And then, at the far corner of the crawl space, I saw the nest. That's the only word I have for it. Piles of blankets, milk cartons, empty snack bags, a flashlight with dying batteries, and a small, water-damaged notebook. Written on the cover, in smeared black ink. The wrong twin. I sat there in the dirt, throat dry, and flipped through it. The entries were dated, some going back as far as 1994. Many were written in fragmented sentences. Some were scratched out entirely. But one sentence appeared over and over again in different styles, different pages, different pens. She left me there. She left me there. She left me there. On the final page was a drawing. It was crude, done in pencil, jagged like it had been drawn in the dark. But I recognized the shape instantly. Our backyard, the house, the original pool, and something underneath it. A circle, labeled only, teeth. That night I didn't speak to the kids. I just sat at the kitchen table staring at the note. At the word, teeth. It echoed in my head like a warning bell from some old, sunken ship. I tried to sleep on the couch again, but the sound of whispering in the vents kept pulling me back to the edge of consciousness. I turned the TV on for noise. That's when I heard it. A knock. Not at the front door. Not the back. From inside the house. I muted the TV. Listened. Another knock. This time louder. It was coming from the crawlspace hatch. I crept toward the hallway where the entrance was, still partially open, just like I'd left it. As I approached, something scratched from the inside. Not a loud sound. Gentle. Careful. Like fingernails brushing drywall. And then a voice. Not quite a whisper, not quite speech. Familiar. Wet. It said, "You weren't supposed to stay." I should have run. I should have grabbed the kids, driven to a motel, changed our names, started over. But instead, I did what I always do. I sat there, frozen, waiting for the world to decide what would happen to me. The next morning, the crawl space was empty. The photos were gone. So was the notebook. Only one thing remained. A photo taped to the inside of the hatch. It was Callista, pregnant, standing by the old pool. And next to her, with her arm around Callista's shoulder, was a woman I had never seen before. Same eyes, same jawline, same smile, but colder. And on the back of the photo, written in perfect, unshaken pen, one of us stayed above. One of us stayed below. There's no record of Callista having a twin. I've checked everything. Birth certificates, school records, family photos. But when I asked her mother on the phone today if Callista ever had a sibling, there was a pause. A long one. Then she said, "I thought you knew." But no, forget I said anything. And she hung up. I think I'm starting to remember something I've never known. I think I married the wrong sister. And I think the other one never left the water. I thought I could handle it. I really did. I told myself I just needed time to think, time to process. I wasn't going to dig. I wasn't going to open anything. I wasn't going to call the cops or chase ghosts in crawl spaces. I was going to be a good father, keep the kids fed, wait it out, like a bad storm. But whatever this is, it doesn't wait. It doesn't rest. It spreads. I woke up with mud on my hands. Not dirt. Not garden soil. Pool mud. That gray, chalky, wet type of filth that only lives at the bottom of something man was never supposed to cover up. My nails were black. My palms stained. My feet, too. My bedroom carpet had wet tracks across it. They led to the hallway, then stopped, as if I'd just materialized there. There were no dreams I could remember. Only a taste in my mouth. Salt. Metal. Chlorine. I scrubbed myself raw in the shower and locked the bathroom door twice, even though the kids were still asleep. I didn't want to see myself in the mirror. Didn't want to see if my reflection moved wrong again, like it had last night. That brief moment when I blinked and the guy in the glass didn't. After I cleaned up, I pulled out the old phone book. The physical one. The kind you keep under the sink and forget exists until life demands something too old for Google. I looked up the name I hadn't said out loud in years. Marin Folly. She used to live 2 streets over. A teacher. Retired. She babysat Zadie once when Callista and I had food poisoning. Quiet woman. Eyes too sharp. She knew something back then. I remember the way she looked at Callista when she came to pick Zadie up. not with friendliness, but with recognition. Like someone spotting a name in a war registry. She answered on the third ring. Is it leaking again? She asked. Not hello. Not who is this? I said nothing. I told her to tell you, she added after a beat. I begged her to tell you before it reached the surface again. My heart stopped. I hadn't even explained who I was. But she knew. Marin, I whispered. What did you see back then? What do you know about Callista? There was a long pause. Then the sound of paper being unfolded. She had a sister. That much is true, Marin said slowly. But it's not as simple as that. They weren't twins. Not exactly. There were complications. Something wrong with the second one. She didn't breathe right. Didn't blink. The mother wouldn't let the hospital record the birth. Said it would only make it harder to undo later. She was into some strange beliefs. Older than religion. I used to think she was mad. Now I'm not so sure. She took a long breath. They built that pool before the second one turned 4. Not for swimming. For containment. I didn't know what to say. I felt my knees go soft. I saw it once, Marin said. Whatever was in her. The other girl. It wasn't screaming, but it sounded like it was. You know how some things make your ears hurt just by existing? That was her. She lived in the deep end for years. Then one day she was gone. And your wife started smiling again. I thought they'd handled it. Until I saw her walk past my house last week. I almost dropped the phone. You're saying you saw Callista? Here? She's back? But Marin didn't answer right away. No, she said finally. That wasn't Callista. That was the other one. The one who never left. After that call, I didn't know what to believe. I stood in the middle of the living room, holding my phone like it might burn me. Hiccup sat at the window, staring at the backyard, watching the same spot where the grass had started to yellow. The shape of it looked wrong now. Not circular. Not square. Almost like something underneath was pressing upward. I took the kids to a diner for dinner. I couldn't stand being in the house. While they argued over pancakes and spilled syrup on everything, I stared at the waitress. Her name tag said Noelle. Her eyes were bloodshot, and she had the look of someone who hadn't slept in days. When she brought the check, she leaned in just slightly and whispered, "You're him, aren't you? The one she marked?" I didn't respond. "You should leave before the water comes back." Then she smiled like she hadn't said anything strange at all and walked away. When we got home, the attic door was open again. The furniture I had shoved in front of it was gone. Not moved. Gone. And from above, faintly, I heard the sound of water dripping onto wood, like a faucet left on in another dimension. I walked upstairs. Slowly. Step by step. No weapon. No light. Just a single thought in my head that wouldn't stop echoing. One of us stayed below. I reached the attic and stepped inside. No shadows. No figures. Just the smell of wet earth and something else. Something like old breath. There, in the middle of the attic floor, was an object wrapped in a damp towel. I unwrapped it. It was a necklace. Zadie's. She hadn't worn it in weeks. It was broken during a school field trip and left in a drawer. And yet here it was, clean, whole, damp. And around the clasp, tangled into the metal, was a single human tooth. Too small to be an adult's. Too new to have fallen out naturally. I ran to my daughter's room. She was asleep. Breathing. Safe. But on her pillow was a note in a child's handwriting. Not hers. She's almost ready to come up. Tell the pool it's time. I didn't sleep the night I found the note on Zadie's pillow. I sat in her room, watching her breathe, brushing her hair gently back every few minutes just to remind myself she was real. That she was safe. That her skin was warm, and her dreams, hopefully, were still filled with light. Every sound in the house made me flinch. I'd never felt so much love and so much fear in the same moment. And for the first time since this started, I made a promise to myself, quietly, right there in the dark. This ends now. No more attic. No more secrets. No more pool. I stayed awake until the sun cracked over the fence line, sending stripes of gold through the window blinds. I made breakfast. Real breakfast. Not frozen waffles or cereal, but eggs and toast and orange juice with pulp. The kids came down slowly, blinking, yawning. The same as always. I asked Zadie if she remembered writing anything last night. She looked at me, confused. No, I was dreaming about space dogs. Felix nodded as if that explained everything. I asked if they'd seen or heard anything strange. They hadn't, and I believed them. For the first time in weeks, their eyes were clear. Their voices steady. The house, still cracked and scarred, felt somehow lighter. like something had lifted its weight off the foundation. The air didn't buzz with that same electric dread anymore. Even Hiccup had stopped growling at the vents. I made my decision. We were going back to the yard. Not to dig, not to run, but to finish it. By midday, I stood in the middle of the backyard with a shovel, the kids watching from the porch under strict instructions not to move. I expected the ground to resist me, but it didn't. It gave way easily, as if it had been waiting for this. I didn't go deep, just enough to see the shape again. There was something there. Not bones, not tunnels. Something planted, wrapped in cloth, heavy, waterlogged. I pulled it out and laid it on the grass. Inside was a wooden box, etched with a symbol I recognized from Callista's childhood necklace. 2 circles overlapping, like twin moons. I opened it with shaking hands. Inside, a locket, a folded letter, and a USB drive. No teeth, no horror, just the truth. The letter was addressed to me. If you're reading this, then I'm gone, or I've succeeded, or maybe both. I'm sorry I didn't tell you everything. I didn't know how. You married me, but I never told you about her. The one who never really made it out. My sister. My mirror. She was part of me for a long time. A part that didn't grow right. But she never meant to hurt anyone. She was confused, trapped, and scared. The pool wasn't her prison. It was her shelter. I went to Hawaii not to run, but to cleanse. To break the connection. The rituals my mother started, they tied me to something dark. But they could be reversed. And I did it. I set her free. Not to come here. Not to haunt. But to rest. The whispers you've heard aren't warnings. They're farewells. Don't be afraid of the pool anymore. It's just water now. I cried reading that letter. Really cried. The kind that empties you out and leaves you clean. I played the video on the USB that night, after the kids were asleep. It was Callista, older, calmer, sitting by the ocean. She explained everything. Her upbringing, the fear, the silence. She said she'd return when it was safe, when she was whole. That she hoped I'd still be here. That she missed the kids. That she missed me. She smiled at the camera. Not the smile she wore when she was pretending. Not the smile she gave the neighbors or in photos. Her real smile. I replayed it twice. Then once more. Just to hear her laugh at the end. It's been 3 weeks. No more notes. No more dripping. No more shadows in the attic or scratches in the walls. The backyard grass is growing again. The pool is still gone. We planted sunflowers over the spot. Zadie picked the seeds. Felix helped water them. Hiccup sleeps near them every afternoon. It's quiet here now. Peaceful. The kind of quiet that feels like exhaling after a long time underwater. And this morning, just before dawn, I opened the door to get the newspaper and found a small box on the steps. Inside was Callista's wedding ring, and a note that said, simply, I'm home.